Hello, my name's Alexa, and I'll be talking about climate change in central Mexico. The future climate of central Mexico will impact the people and ecosystems in many ways. The agricultural and tourism industries will be impacted by climate change, and the people who rely on these ecosystems and sectors to survive will become food and water insecure due to the negative impacts that climate will have. The ecosystems of central Mexico have been greatly impacted by human activities, which greatly increases their vulnerability to climate change. The temperate forests in central Mexico have been greatly deforested due to the expanding populations. The state of Tlaxcala has the highest deforestation rate in the country, where 40% of what was once forest is now used for agricultural practice. Some impacts of a changing climate include slow growing, water stress in vegetation, an increase in forest fires, and tree disease incidents with an overall productivity decrease of the forest. Logging is also greatly impacted by climate change as extreme temperatures cause new pests to the area and heavy precipitation events may restrict the growing of plants. Another ecosystem that is at risk to climate change due to increases in vulnerability are the semi-arid shrublands, which have also been heavily degraded and deforested to be used for agricultural practices. To restore and conserve the shrublands, studies have been done to find species that can grow and tolerate conditions similar to future climate conditions. And the goal is to introduce those shrubs into the area to restore the land and create a sustainable ecosystem that can survive in future climates. A species that is heavily impacted by deforestation and climate change are salamanders, which are declining around the world, and climate change has been identified as a possible cause of their extinction in the future. Salamanders contribute to the biodiversity of Mexico, and they inhabit the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt and the Sierra Madre Oriental, but they're expected to lose up to 75% of that land by 2050 due to climate change. A study done in Mexico found that 73% of the respondents rank climate change as a top threat that influences the economy, the society, and their overall way of life. People of lower income and lower education typically have less access to services and resources to reduce their risk to climate change and are therefore more vulnerable than the more educated and wealthy. Central Mexico's economy is very vulnerable to climate change as well as the people. The agriculture and tourism sectors make up a large portion of the region's GDP, and due to changes in temperature and precipitation patterns, the agricultural production and food supply will decrease. Specific crops that are major contributors to the GDP are coffee, corn, and sugarcane, which all have specific growing conditions to produce high harvest. And with changes in climate, farmers are coming up with new ways to generate harvest. For example, coffee is heavily impacted by changes in temperature and precipitation. So farmers are recommending that we devote areas where precipitation will increase and temperature will decrease to growing only coffee. Agriculture is the main and sometimes the only economic sector in rural areas, making it highly vulnerable to changes in climate. Along with the agricultural industry, tourism is predicted to decline in coastal areas such as Morelos and Veracruz. And the IPCC predicts that there will be a 25% decrease in tourism for the region due to sea level rise. So as mentioned before, many people in central Mexico will be negatively impacted by climate change. Poor communities are more vulnerable to climate change as they lack resources and services to adapt to the change. Farmers and all of the people that they feed may face food insecurity and water insecurity in the future. And those who rely on ecosystems such as forests, shrublands, or wetlands are very vulnerable to climate change as they depend on the natural resources to survive. Human activities such as land use change, along with physical location of the region, contribute to the vulnerability and risk of different people, economic sectors, and ecosystems. And Poor communities and rural communities are more vulnerable to climate change as they are less able to adapt, and the agricultural and tourism industries are predicted to take a hit due to climate change. And these are my sources.